America's secret prison scandal. They tried to silence this. If you like dark stories they don't want you to hear, hit subscribe, smash like, drop a comment, and lock your doors. Because tonight's story doesn't end when the lights go out. The body was found at 4:17 a.m., wedged between two rusted drainage pipes beneath the interstate, less than a mile from downtown St. Louis. No wallet, no phone, no shoes. Just a man in his early 30s, wrists raw and ringed with deep purple abrasions, as if he'd been bound for days and only freed by force or death. The coroner would later say he drowned in less than 3 inches of filthy runoff water. But that wasn't the strangest part. Pressed into the inside of his left forearm, carved deep enough to scar, were 4 words that made the room go silent when detectives saw them under the morgue lights. I was never charged. Detective Mara Ellison stood over the steel table, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. 15 years on the force, homicide unit. Seen bodies burned, broken, dumped like trash. This one felt different. Not because of how he died, but because of what he clearly survived first. The man had defensive wounds on his shoulders and back, electrical burns on his ankles, a faint chemical smell clinging to his hair that didn't match anything in the police database. And on his ribs, barely visible unless the light hit just right, were faded numbers. Not a tattoo, burned in like branding. No known gang markings. No prison ink. No record. He didn't exist. By sunrise, the discovery had already triggered a quiet scramble inside the St. Louis Police Department. Not the loud kind with press briefings and flashing cameras. The other kind, closed-door phone calls. Faces that went stiff when certain words were spoken. Orders that came down without explanation. "Run him through everything again," Captain Rhodes said, standing in the doorway of the bullpen. Local, state, federal. Immigration. Military. Hospitals. Shelters. I want something. Mara nodded, but she already knew. They'd run the prints twice. Clean. Dental records? Nothing. Facial recognition came back with a dozen near matches, all false positives. It was like the man had been scrubbed out of reality. By noon, a name surfaced anyway, not from a database, from a voicemail. At 12:43 p.m., Mara's desk phone rang. No caller ID, just a single message left behind, distorted but clear enough to raise a hair on her arms. "You found him too late." The voice said, "Mayo, calm, educated. If you keep digging, you'll join him. Let this one disappear." The call traced to a burner phone purchased in cash, activated for less than 10 minutes, then destroyed. Mara didn't tell Captain Rhodes about the message right away. Instead, she drove to the address listed on the body's autopsy intake form. The location where the victim's clothes had been found stuffed inside a black trash bag, an abandoned freight depot on the edge of the River District. The place was supposed to be empty, condemned, scheduled for demolition. Inside, the air was damp and sour. Old oil stains spread across the concrete, like shadows that never dried. In the far corner, behind a stack of collapsed shelving, Mara spotted something that didn't belong. A metal door. No signage. No handle. Just a keypad mounted to the wall, scratched and worn as if used often. Recently, she radioed it in. Crime scene text arrived. The keypad was dead, power line cut clean. But the door itself was solid steel, industrial grade. The kind you'd expect in a bank vault or a prison. They didn't open it that day. An order came down from City Hall within an hour. Jurisdictional issue. Federal interest. Stand down. Mara argued. She always did. She cited probable cause, public safety, an unidentified homicide with signs of prolonged detention and torture. The response was polite, firm, and final. Leave it alone. That night, she went home and did what she'd learned to do years ago, when the rules stopped making sense. She started digging on her own. The next clue didn't come from the dead man. It came from a woman who shouldn't have been alive. Her name was Lena Park, 38, former civil rights attorney turned legal aid volunteer. 3 years earlier, she'd vanished after filing a sealed motion in federal court on behalf of an unnamed client. The case was dismissed the same day. Lena was reported missing 2 weeks later. Officially, she'd left the country voluntarily. Unofficially, everyone who knew her said that was a lie. Mara found Lena living under an assumed name in a church-run shelter outside Chicago. Thin, watchful, jumped at every sudden noise. When Mara showed her badge, Lena didn't relax. She flinched. They found another one, didn't they? Lena whispered. Mara didn't answer. She didn't have to. Lena's hands shook as she wrapped them around a paper cup of coffee. I told them, she said. I told the court there were people being held without charges. No records. No lawyers. No hearings. Just gone. Where? Mara asked. Lena laughed softly, humorless. That's a trick. Everywhere. And nowhere. Warehouses. Decommissioned military sites. Private facilities hidden behind shell companies. They move them when anyone gets close. Who's they? Lena looked up, eyes glossy. People who don't lose. She told Mara about her client. A whistleblower from a defense contractor. He'd uncovered evidence of an off-the-books detention program, justified under a post-9/11 legal loophole that never fully closed. The men taken weren't terrorists. They were liabilities. Witnesses, accountants, engineers, anyone who knew too much. They called it preventative containment, Lena said. No trial means no paper trail. No paper trail means no scandal. What happened to your client? Lena swallowed. I don't know, but I know where they took him first. She slid a folded piece of paper across the table. An address, back in St. Louis. Mara didn't sleep that night. By dawn, she cross-referenced the address with city records. The building was owned by a logistics company with federal contracts. Clean books, generous political donations, 0 violations. And in the basement blueprints, filed, approved, and then quietly amended, was a section labeled simply Storage B. No dimensions listed. Mara brought the file to Captain Rhodes. He read it in silence, face pale. When he finally looked up, his voice was low. You need to back off this, Mara. Sir, I mean it. This is bigger than us. Then that man died for nothing. Rhodes stood, closed his office door, and for the first time, dropped the command tone. I've got 2 kids. I want to see them grow up. Mara left without responding. That evening, she returned to the freight depot alone. The metal door was still there, so was the keypad replaced. She didn't try the code. She pried open the access panel beneath it and cut the power manually. Sparks flew. The lock clicked. For a moment, she just stood there, heart pounding, hand on her gun. Every instinct screamed that crossing this threshold meant there was no coming back. Then she pulled the door open. Cold air rushed out, carrying the unmistakable smell of antiseptic, sweat, and something older, fear soaked into concrete. A staircase descended into darkness. Mara flicked on her flashlight and started down. At the bottom, the beam landed on rows of narrow rooms, doors open, each one containing a metal bed bolted to the floor. Restraints, drains, cameras ripped from the walls but still dangling, wires exposed. And on the far wall, written in shaky black marker, were dozens of names, some crossed out, some underlined, some circled in red. At the very bottom of the list was the name of the man found dead under the interstate, and beneath it, freshly written, were 2 new words. Next, Ellison. But that wasn't what made her step back in horror. It was the sound behind her, the heavy steel door at the top of the stairs slamming shut, and the unmistakable click of a lock engaging from the outside. The lock sealed with sound that didn't echo. It absorbed the air, the walls, the breath in Mara Ellison's lungs. For a split second, she stood frozen at the bottom of the stairwell, flashlight trembling in her grip, listening to hum of electricity return to the keypad above. Whoever shut that door knew exactly what they were doing. She tried the handle anyway. It didn't budge. Police! She shouted, voice bouncing uselessly off concrete. Open the door! No answer. Just a faint whir of ventilation somewhere deep in the structure, steady and indifferent. Mara forced herself to breathe. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. She turned back toward the cell block, sweeping the flashlight beam across the rooms again, this time slower. The beds were scarred with scratches where fingernails had clawed at the metal. Some restraints were frayed, cut clean with tools. Others were snapped, as if someone had fought until something gave. On the floor of one cell, she found a folded scrap of paper tucked beneath the bed frame. Written in cramped handwriting were dates, names, transfer times, and a symbol drawn over and over again in the margins, a triangle intersected by a vertical line. She snapped photos with her phone, then checked for signal. Nothing. Her radio crackled once, then died. Dead zone. Shielded. They'd planned for this. Footsteps echoed faintly from somewhere above. Not approaching. Moving away. Mara made a decision she'd sworn she never would. She pulled her service weapon and followed the ventilation sound deeper into the facility. The hallway narrowed, sloping downward. Fluorescent lights flickered to life as she passed, motion sensors still active. That meant the place wasn't abandoned. Just paused. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with a man sitting on the floor, back against the wall, knees pulled to his chest. He flinched at the light, raising his hands instinctively. "Don't," he whispered. "Please." He was alive. Barely. His hair was matted, beard overgrown, skin pale with the sickly yellow tint of someone who hadn't seen sunlight in months. A plastic band was still clamped around his wrist, embedded so deeply it looked like it had grown into his flesh. The same faded numbers were burned into his ribs. Mara knelt slowly. "I'm a detective," she said softly. "You're safe. What's your name?" The man shook his head violently. "Names get you moved." "Moved where?" "Down." His eyes darted toward the floor. "Or out." "Out where?" He swallowed. "You don't come back from out." Mara cut the plastic restraint with her knife. "Listen to me. I need to get you out of here. But I need information. Who's running this place?" The man laughed weakly, a sound that scraped raw fear across the walls. "No one runs it. That's the point. It runs itself." He told her his name anyway. Daniel Reese, former data analyst for a private security firm, contracted by the federal government. 2 years earlier, he'd flagged irregularities in detainee transfers tied to black budget counts. 3 days after sending an internal report, he'd been taken off the street while jogging. "No charges," Daniel said. "No lawyer. They told me I was being held pending clarification." That clarification never came. "How many others?" Mara asked. Daniel's voice dropped. "Hundreds. Maybe more. They rotate us. Different cities. Different buildings. Keeps patterns from forming." "Who interrogates you?" "Sometimes no one. Sometimes men in suits who never give names. Sometimes contractors who don't ask questions." He hesitated. "Sometimes psychologists." "For what?" "To see how long it takes before you break." A metallic clang echoed from the stairwell, the sound of the outer door unlocking. Daniel's eyes widened. "They're back." Mara pulled him to his feet. "Can you walk?" "I can try." She scanned the hallway. There was no way out except the way she'd come, or deeper in, and deeper in felt like exactly what they wanted. She chose a third option. Mara spotted a maintenance hatch half hidden behind a storage rack. It led into a crawl space barely wide enough to squeeze through. She shoved Daniel inside first, then followed, pulling the hatch shut just as voices echoed down the corridor. Male voices. Calm. Unhurried. They triggered the sensors. One said, "She's still inside." Another chuckled. "Good. Saves us the trouble." Mara held her breath as boots passed inches from her face, dust drifting down into her hair. Daniel's breathing was shallow, uneven. One sneeze, one cough, and it was over. The voices faded. Minutes passed, then more. When Mara finally cracked the hatch open again, the hallway was empty, but the lights were off. They moved fast, back the way she'd come, up the slope, toward the stairwell. The steel door loomed ahead, now ajar. Freedom. They were 3 steps from it when a spotlight snapped on behind them. Detective Ellison. A voice called out. Familiar. Smooth. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Mara turned slowly. Captain Rhodes stood at the far end of the corridor, flanked by two men she didn't recognize. Both wore civilian clothes. Neither looked surprised. "Sir," Mara said, disbelief curdling into something bitter. "You knew." Rhodes' shoulders sagged. "I tried to warn you. You locked me in a secret prison." "I saved your life," he snapped, then lowered his voice. "You don't understand the forces at play here." Mara raised her gun. The two men mirrored her movement instantly, weapons trained on her chest. "Let him go," she said. "He's a civilian. You have no legal authority." "Legal authority is flexible," one of the men said. "National security tend to be." Daniel whimpered beside her. Rhodes took a step closer. "Mara, listen to me. This program exists because it has to. The public can't handle the truth. And some people can't be allowed to speak it." "You mean buried?" She shot back. Rhodes' eyes flicked to Daniel. "He'll be transferred. Somewhere safe." Daniel laughed hysterically. "You said that last time." In the split second of distraction, Mara acted. She fired at the light above Rhodes' head. Glass exploded. Darkness swallowed the corridor. Shouts rang out. A gun discharged, the shot ricocheting off concrete. Mara grabbed Daniel's arm and ran. They burst through the stairwell door into the night air, alarms blaring behind them. The city lights glittered like nothing was wrong, like hell didn't exist beneath its streets. They didn't stop running until they reached the riverbank, lungs burning, hearts pounding. By the time police sirens wailed in the distance, real ones, not the private security kind, Mara had already made her next move. She called the one person left who might help, Lena Park. They met at dawn in a crowded bus terminal, the kind of place where no one noticed anything unless it inconvenienced them. Daniel sat hunched between them, hoodie pulled low, eyes darting. "They'll hunt him," Lena said after hearing everything. "And you?" "Good," Mara replied, "because now we hunt back." Lena pulled out a flash drive from her bag. "Before I disappeared, I copied everything I could. Financials, memos, transfer logs. It's encrypted. I never found the key." Daniel straightened slowly. "I can." Mara looked at him. "How long?" "Hours. Maybe less." He hesitated. "But once we open it, there's no going back." Mara thought of the names on the wall. The crossed out ones. The circled ones. Her own, freshly written. "Open it," she said. They found a motel on the outskirts of town. Cheap. Anonymous. Daniel worked on a laptop, while Mara stood watch at the window, gun within reach. Lena paced, chewing her nails. The screen flickered. Folders appeared. Dates. Facilities. Budgets hidden inside humanitarian grants and disaster relief funds. Emails referencing assets and containment cycles. And one document marked continuity protocol. Daniel opened it, his face drained of color. "What?" Mara asked. Daniel scrolled slowly. "This isn't about silencing witnesses," he said. "It's about replacing them." Lena leaned over his shoulder. "Replacing who?" Daniel swallowed. "Anyone who becomes inconvenient. Journalists, judges, politicians. They disappear the original and insert a control version back into the system." Mara's blood ran cold. "That's impossible." Daniel clicked on a video file. The screen filled with grainy footage of a man sitting in an interrogation chair, bruised, exhausted. The timestamp was from 6 months ago. The man looked up at the camera. It was Captain Rhodes. And as the video continued, a second figure stepped into frame, identical in every way, down to the scar on his chin. Lena gasped. "That's a duplicate," Daniel whispered. "They didn't recruit Rhodes." Mara stared at the screen, realization crashing down like a wave. They replaced him. The motel room phone rang. Once. Twice. Mara slowly picked it up. A familiar voice spoke on the other end, calm and precise. "Detective Ellison," Captain Rhodes said. "You have something that belongs to us." Mara looked at the laptop, at Daniel, at Lena. Outside, unmarked vans rolled silently into the parking lot. And this time, The voice continued, "There will be no escape." The motel parking lot went quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like the world was holding its breath. Mara lowered the phone slowly, her eyes never leaving the darkened window. Outside, the unmarked van sat with engines idling, headlights off. Professionals. No sirens. No shouting. No mistakes. "They're here," she said. Daniel's hands hovered over the keyboard. Frozen. Lena backed away from the door, her face pale but steady. "If they take that drive," she said, "everything we uncovered disappears with us." Mara nodded. "Then they don't take it." A soft knock came at the door. Not aggressive, not rushed, polite. "Detective Ellison," Captain Rhodes' voice called through the thin wood. "Let's end this cleanly." Daniel laughed under his breath. The sound cracked and desperate. "That thing out there isn't him." Mara chambered around. "No, it's better." Another knock. Firmer this time. "You're surrounded," Rhodes said. "And for what it's worth, I did try to keep you safe." Lena stepped beside Mara. "You ready?" Mara glanced at the bathroom window. A narrow opening overlooking the back alley. Fire escape ladder rusted but intact. "Daniel," Mara said, "can you get the files out?" He swallowed. "I can upload them. But once they hit the net, they'll trigger fail-safes. Media suppression. Disinformation. They'll call it fake. Truth has a way of surviving labels," Lena said. Daniel nodded and began typing furiously. The door handle turned. Mara fired first, the shot ripping through the lock. The door burst inward as armed men poured into the room, weapons raised. Mara dragged Lena toward the bathroom as gunfire shredded drywall. Daniel slammed the laptop shut, clutching the flash drive, and dove after them. They crashed through the window into the cold morning air, glass raining down onto the alley. Mara landed hard, pain exploding up her side, but she was already moving. "Run!" she shouted. They sprinted down the alley as bullets sparked against brick. At the far end, a delivery truck idled, driver half asleep behind the wheel. Mara flagged him down with her badge and gun. "Federal emergency. Drive." The truck lurched forward just as men spilled into the alley behind them. They didn't stop driving for 20 minutes. When they finally ditched the truck near the outskirts, Daniel collapsed onto the curb, gasping. Lena knelt beside him. "Upload's done," he wheezed. "Mirror sites. International servers. They can't wipe it all." Mara felt a brief surge of relief. It didn't last. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Federal officials deny allegations of illegal detention facilities. Viral documents labeled foreign disinformation campaign. Already, Lena whispered. Then another alert. St. Louis Police Captain Mark Rhodes killed in line of duty during violent standoff with armed suspects. Mara stared at the screen. "Killed. They burned the original," Daniel said quietly. "Tied up the loose end." Lena's voice trembled. "Then who was on that phone?" Mara didn't answer. She couldn't. For the next 72 hours, the country argued. News networks dismissed the documents as elaborate hoaxes. Social media platforms flagged them. Accounts sharing details vanished overnight. A handful of journalists tried to dig deeper and abruptly pivoted to other stories. Daniel disappeared on the fourth day. No note, no struggle. Just gone. Lena went underground again, slipping between safe houses like a ghost. "They don't need to kill everyone," she told Mara over a burner phone. "Just enough to keep the rest quiet." Mara became a liability. An internal review suspended her without pay. Her badge was confiscated. Her name leaked to fringe forums branding her unstable, obsessed, dangerous. She watched her own reputation dismantled in real time. Still, she kept digging. One name from the documents kept resurfacing. Continuity Oversight Office. No address. No public record. But one recurring funding route led to a suburban research campus outside Arlington, Virginia. Mara drove there alone. The building looked harmless. Glass, steel manicured lawns. A sign out front read, Federal Risk Assessment Center. Inside, a receptionist smiled warmly. "Can I help you?" Mara flashed her badge. Expired but convincing enough. Detective Ellison. I have an appointment. The receptionist checked her screen, frowned slightly, then smiled again. Of course. They're expecting you. That should have scared her. Instead, it confirmed everything. She was escorted down a pristine hallway into a conference room with one chair. A man entered moments later. Mid-50s. Perfect posture. Familiar eyes. Captain Rhodes. No scars. No bruises. No hint of interrogation. Please, he said, gesturing to the chair. Sit. Mara stayed standing. What are you? Rhodes smiled gently. A solution. You replace people. We preserve stability, he corrected. When individuals threaten systems that protect millions, continuity must be ensured. You imprison them, torture them, erase them. We study them, he said calmly. We learn how to replicate function without volatility. Mara's voice hardened. You murdered an innocent man under an interstate. Rhodes' smile faded. That asset was compromised. And Daniel, a pause, non-compliant. Mara raised her gun. The room didn't react. Do you know why we didn't stop you? Rhodes asked. Why we let you see the facility, rescue a detainee, leak the files? Mara's grip tightened. Because systems need pressure tests, he continued. You expose weaknesses. Now we can correct them. You're insane. Rhodes shook his head. You're predictable. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a psychological profile. Her profile. Strengths, flaws, trauma triggers, compliance likelihood. At the bottom was a designation. Ellison Mara, candidate approved. You won't kill me, Mara said. You need me alive. Rhodes met her gaze. Correct. And I won't work for you. Not immediately, he said. Resistance is expected. Guards entered silently behind her. Mara turned, gun raised, and froze. One of them was Lena. Same face. Same scar on her eyebrow. Different eyes. Mara's breath caught. Lena? The woman didn't react. Rhodes stood. She was an excellent template. Ideal moral framework. Sadly, she refused to adapt. Mara backed toward the door, heart pounding. People will find out. Rhodes leaned in close. They already did, and they chose comfort over chaos. Mara was escorted out, not to a cell, but to the front entrance. No cuffs, no threats, just a final warning. We're not hiding anymore, Rhodes said. We're normalizing. That night, Mara sat alone in her apartment, staring at the city lights. Her phone buzzed again. A private message from an unknown account. A photo, a basement wall, names written in black marker. At the bottom, freshly added, circled in red, Ellison M. released. Below it, in smaller letters, status, continuity active. Mara closed her eyes. Somewhere beneath the country, doors were opening and closing. People were disappearing, and others were quietly taking their place. And the scariest part wasn't that the system existed. It was that it didn't need to stay secret anymore. If this story shook you, good. The next one will hit harder. Subscribe, because some truths don't stay buried forever. They found motel on the outskirts of town. Cheap. Anonymous. Daniel worked on a laptop, while Mara stood watch at the window, gun within reach. Lena paced, chewing her nails.